exploding. Boo,
Why are we exploding?
boo. We're in compliment to the Cambrian explosion video we did on your channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know why we were exploding.
Yeah.
I was just going with it.
Get it? Yeah. Okay, Cambrian explosion. So, in compliment to that, my wife is learning things that she's never learned because you were what? Homeschool. Homeschool.
I'm going to start putting that in the titles of my video. Homeschooled girl reacts.
That's definitely what we're going to do for this video.
No,
Thanks for
I'm
the
not.
suggestion. She was homeschooled and she is reacting, and here we are. So this is a funny little guy that was talked about in the Cambrian explosion video.
That's on my channel.
And how many million years ago was that?
A lot.
500 million years ago for the Cambrian explosion.
Oh, yeah, 544, I think.
And it ranged about 40 to 57 million years before the Cambrian extinction event. So go learn more about that on my wife's channel. We're doing the whole series, everything we know about the world that we know of. That might be the name of it.
That we know of.
Right. And so here we go. The extinct little weird guy. Trust me, you saw the intro, like you saw the thumbnail picture. This dude is a freak. He's his own little thing. I forgot what he was.
I don't remember his name, but he's his own little guy.
We got to learn what his name is again. I'm going to call him Frank.
We're terrible with names. I was kind of thinking like Geraldo.
About 500 million years ago, life diversified on a scale the world had never seen before, and most of the major animal groups appeared for the very first time. We call it the Cambrian explosion. And along with these early forms of our modern animal groups came some relatives that, to our standards, look like they came from another planet. Allow me to introduce you to hallucigenia, an animal that was so bizarre scientists initially didn't know which way was up. Let's get right into it.
How did we forget that?
I know, that's such an easy one.
Hallucigenia.
Yeah, that's such an easy one.
Hallucigenia was alive about 508 million years ago and got to about 5 centimeters long, max. Very tiny. Their life was restricted to the oceans along with every other animal alive at the time. The transition to land hadn't been made yet, that we know of. This creature was first discovered in 1909 by a paleontologist named Charles Doolittle Walcott.
Oh, that's that guy.
Tiny little fossilized invertebrate that had what looked like 7 pairs of spikes coming out of one side of its body and 7 pairs of squigglies coming out of the other. Unbelievable that that level of detail was even preserved, considering it was alive 500 million years ago. And that has to do with the location he founded it, the Burgess Shale, an incredible fossil formation situated in the Canadian Rocky Mountains.
The Rockies go up to Canada?
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm following.
I knew we had Rockies. I didn't know they also had Rockies.
Yeah, right on the border.
Yeah.
It's pretty much mentioned anytime the Cambrian period is being talked about because a massive abundance of some of the most well-preserved Cambrian fossils have been found here. Like
Canadians.
60,000 individual fossils. And these provide an incredible snapshot of the diversity of life forms that existed 500 million years ago, from the earliest arthropods and chordates, the group vertebrates are part of, to the earliest worms and other soft-bodied organisms. It takes exceptional conditions for soft-bodied animals to fossilize well, and the Burgess Shale is an oasis of exceptional conditions. Here's why. If you want to become a fossil, the most important thing is to get buried quickly. Think about it. Once an animal dies, it doesn't just get swallowed by the ground. It typically stays exposed to the elements and other animals for a really long time. Then it gets all messed up.
So it doesn't
fossilize. So ideally, if you want to become a fossil, you want to be buried by a landslide or a mudslide. And in the case of the Burgess Shale fossils, it seems as though these animals were living in underwater mud banks that would occasionally turn into mudslides due to the water currents.
See, this is good stuff. That's actually really funny. She didn't cover in the last video.
Yeah.
She shouted out this place in Canada and in China, but didn't really explain why. And I had mentioned, like, these are places I would never stop by.
Yeah.
Because they look dirty and useless. And that's why. They look dirty and useless.
Yeah.
Because it's a big, muddy pit.
Yep.
That's where you would dig. Well, I want to be a tree, so you're not going to find me. My body's going to be decomposed and eaten by plants.
I hate every time the way you talk about it.
But that's what's going to happen.
But you just sound so excited.
It's going to be awesome.
An instant bury. A sad day for the little guys, but now we get to look at them 500 million years later, which is just so fucking crazy when you think about it like that. You know what? Why don't I just tell you a little bit about the Cambrian period as a whole?
Are you good?
I've got a filing cabinet, and I'm going to keep hitting my elbow on it.
Why did you do that?
I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Cambrian period as a whole to provide context for the overall vibe that hallucigenia was living in. The Cambrian period was like Mother Nature's first acid trip, or nature's trial run, or honestly what you'd expect to see in a movie about an alien planet. Shit was weird. in the best way possible. As I had mentioned earlier, it's often called the Cambrian explosion because this is when most of the major animal groups appeared for the very first time in the fossil record. And that's not to say there weren't any before, like sponges and jellies, but all of a sudden it was like boom. And not to say this happened overnight at all. This was a period of millions of years, which in the time span of the entire Earth, 4.6 billion years, is kind of overnight. So it is like a boom. So there were animals like hallucigenia, of course, and also Anomalocaris and Opabinia and Morella, and also trilobites, which would end up sticking around for a long time, and jawless fish with a backbone. And those jawless fish led to the evolution of every other animal with a backbone, like us. It's not that this massive diversification was due to a natural global warming period, which pumped more oxygen into the oceans, allowing life to explode. But I'm going to go more in depth when I redo my History of Life short series into the long form format that I've mentioned. So to summarize this massive tangent, the Burgess Shale is fucking sick, and so is the Cambrian period. So when Charles Doolittle Walcott examined the fossil of this tiny, spiky, squiggly creature, he identified it as an early annelid worm, specifically related to bristle worms that I talked about last week. And he gave it the scientific name Canadia sparsa. Canadia. You'd think it'd be Canadia, but I have a feeling that it's Canadia. They love to do that shit in scientific Latin, don't they? Whatever. Either way, he called it Canadia because it was found in Canada. Then, decades later, in 1977, a British paleontologist named Simon Conway Morris took a closer look at this Canadian annelid worm. And he thought, no fucking way that's an annelid worm. This is something
no way,
and he renamed the creature Hallucigenia sparsa. Much cooler, and as you could probably guess, due to its acid trip appearance, or as Conway Morris put it, its bizarre dreamlike quality. He also guessed that the spiky side was the bottom half, and the squiggly side was the top half. That the spikes were like stilts that they used to move around, and the squigglies were tentacles with mouths at the ends of each of them. I think that man was actually on acid when he examined this thing. But somehow they let that slide for 14 years, until 1991, when his idea was literally flipped upside down, with an examination of new, even better preserved hallucigenia fossils found in China at the Qinzhou fossil site. These deposits are extremely similar to the Burgess Shale in that they formed under similar conditions and have both revealed an unbelievable amount of diversity during the Cambrian period. A team of paleontologists were able to see more details in these fossils and concluded hallucigenia did not have stilts and tentacles with mouths at the ends of each of them.
Do it again. Run it back.
Because that would be crazy. Because that would be nuts.
Man, listen. I want to hear it one more time.
Like nothing.
And did not have stilts.
Like, what creature was ever made like that?
This is the part of science that's always so goofy when you go, well, obviously, because I don't have any frame of reference. Right? It just sounds ridiculous. But for 14 years, he just was like, but prove it.
Yeah.
Prove that they're not 5 mouths attached to one long tummy with stilts at the bottom. Because you fucking can't.
He was like, of course, naturally, this is the most reasonable explanation for why it looks the way it looks. And everyone else was like, I mean, sure, dude. I guess so.
We don't have the technology to prove you wrong. We'll let you have the hallucigenia weird stilt bug.
I feel like, though, the minute they were able to disprove it, they were like, boom, you're ridiculous, you're dumb.
I had 14 years of glory. What do you want from me? The dynasty lives on.
And tentacles with mouths at the ends of each of them. No! The tentacles were legs with what looked like claws. And the stilts were spikes coming out of its back. The researchers then compared this new, reorganized hallucigenia to similar species found at the same site, so alive at the same time, such as Xenusian and Aishea, which are fucking badass names, and Microdictin, which I can only assume someone was feeling very silly when they named it that. And based on their analysis, the team grouped hallucigenia, along with the animals that I just mentioned, as lobopods, which are kind of wormy-like creatures with stubby legs that are closely related to arthropods. Today, lobopods are tardigrades and velvet worms. And hallucigenia, along with the rest of the worm-like creatures just mentioned, were put in the same group as velvet worms. That feels much better, doesn't it? Feels like the pieces are coming together. Well, it doesn't end there, because at this point, they still hadn't identified the head. Yes, we have not even mentioned the head yet. There are the spiky and squiggly sides of the hallucigenia fossil taken care of. But there is also a dark blob at one of the ends. Presumed to be the head, but no one could ever say for sure because there weren't those typical head details that you would expect to find. That could confirm that idea. Like some scientists thought, what if it was just a puddle of fluid that leaked out after hallucigenia died? What if that was their thing when they died? Just leaking out fluid that looks like a head. And that question remained unanswered for another 24 years.
That's okay, take your time.
A whole 106 years after the first discovery of this creature, 2015, a team of researchers were able to get their hands on even better preserved hallucigenia fossils and use new
you can see his little
science
eyes.
shit. They used an electron microscope, which allowed the scientists to see in incredible detail that the blobby side was not the head side. The head was the opposite side. They found 2 little eye spots and a mouth with a ring of needle-like teeth inside of it. They also found an extra 3 pairs of appendages closer to the head that might have been sensory structures or maybe used like tentacles.
Or maybe he just wanted to look a little fancy.
They just kind of float around him and he's like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, he just wanted to look a little cool, you know?
He just touches stuff as he walks. Well, stop touching. I like to touch. I'm a sensory guy. My eyes suck. They're tiny. I'm 5 inches, an inch and a half long.
In that same year, in 2015, a new relative of hallucigenia was described, found in those fossil beds that I mentioned in China. Collinsium, named after Desmond Collins, who discovered the fossil. It's like hallucigenia on steroids. That's it. That's all. That's it. That's really all I wanted to tell you. The story of hallucigenia ends there.
Okay. Well, dang. There you go. Short, sweet, straight to the point. Hallucigenia. That's a name we have to commit to memory. Okay.
We're not going to forget it again.
Hallucigenia.
Hallucigenia.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Hallucigenia, haiku ichthys, and trilobite.
Done. We got.
Those are the names of our future children.
Done. How did you get the name Halluca? Well, hallucigenia is the name of a fucking spiked, thought to be worm.
A lobopod. He's a lobopod.
They didn't go over what he eats, so I'm assuming amoebas and dirt.
Yeah.
And they didn't go through their mating process, so I'm assuming asexual reproduction.
Yeah.
And they just split in half. Those are my guesses.
I support both of those hypotheses.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I made it up. We'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure you check out Skitten's channel again for learning about the rest of the history of the Earth. All of it, and we're going to pack it into our little homeschooled brain. If you're ever homeschooled out there and you feel bad because you didn't get the public school experience, you're feeling correctly. We'll see you in the next one. I'll let y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.